Alright, so we've made a jig for the trailing arms. We've welded it straight to the metal table, all the material, the rotor, then we have another arm on the back for the upper control arm. Then we have some small ones over here. This one's bolted through. We didn't bolt this one through, seeing as the hole's oblong. I don't think it'll really help a whole lot with alignment. And right now it's really sturdy. The whole table moves along with it. But yeah, I got it all marked out. We are cutting from this end to the mark, which is right here. We're cutting 15 inches. And yeah, I'm gonna cut that. I'm gonna bring over the other trailing arm and repeat. But on the other trailing arm, I'm gonna be cutting an additional 2 inches, but I'll update you after that. Okay, so I cut both the control arms on the car. Here's the original one, which was my EF trailing arm with a DA spindle and brake setup. And here's the front of the wagon trailing arm. And my original idea was I was gonna slip it over and just weld it. So I had only cut it, I believe I cut this one from here to the front was 15. And this one from this cut to the front was 16, which it should have been 17. Don't quote me on that. But yeah, I couldn't get it to slip over, so I ended up cutting off an additional inch off the wagon rear piece, which I've already welded and pretty much all done. And here it is. So yeah, I got the Civic front, grafted it to the rear wagon, and I had to like make cuts and smash down the trailing arm to get it to be the same size. But got it done. I just grinded it a bit and I welded this 1/4 inch slab in there just to give it a little more strength, and also did the camber piece, which if this is the original piece off the wagon, I just cut it and shortened it by 2 inches as well. But yeah, here's one down. I just got to clean it, and I had my buddy offer me that he wanted to powder coat these, so I want to talk to him. If not, otherwise I could just spray paint it. But yep, I'll get the other one done, then we'll move on to the bottom of the car, which is going to be the crossmember. Okay, so I was able to bring my car over to my buddy's shop, and we put it on the 2-post lift, so I didn't have to work on the ground or the dirt, which would have sucked if I would have. But I already went ahead and pulled the trailing arms off, and I had pulled off the fuel tank over at my house, and I already cut the floor a bit, just to try to suck up the diff into the bottom of the car. But I think I'm just gonna go ahead and cut actually the whole floorboard out, all of this, and just completely remake it out of a square tubing, just because just where the LCA sits, it sits too forward, even with me shortening the trailing arms, just where the RT forward drive wagon trailing arm sits differently. So here, I'll go ahead and show you in a sec. Okay, so here's the side-by-side comparison of the trailing arms. And what I was talking about earlier is the LCA position on the trailing arm is different from the wagon, or the graft wagon and Civic trailing arm, to the normal front-wheel drive trailing arm. And where it sits on the wagon trailing arm, which I've used this back portion, it sits right in here, which you can see is after the center of the wheel hub. So, and on the front-wheel drive version, which if you look, it sits almost, well, I would say that's dead center right in here. So that's the issue that I'm having. And I knew I was going to have that issue even before I started, just before I even started cutting the arms up, because they're just in completely different places. And I've seen people graft the bearing into that whole trailing arm, but then I would think there would be an issue with the axle maybe binding up against the coilover, because then you would have the axle coming past right here and it'd be a really tight fit, seeing as that the hole for the axle is right where this is. So it would be a really severe angle, maybe making axles wear prematurely or break. So that's why I decided to use the RT four-wheel drive trailing arm grafted to the Civic instead. And this, I'm just going to be moving it 2 inches back. So I'm going to be cutting the whole floorboard out, and I'm just making it out of square tubing. I'm just going to be moving it back the correct length, which I have to measure, but I believe it was like 1.5 inches, roughly. But I'm going to be cutting all that out, placing this just slightly back here. Then for the top, because if not, it's going to make the whole strut or the whole coil crooked. I'm going to have to cut the top of it and angle it towards the rear, and my hopes that that'll work, because I really don't want to cut the whole tub and move it back. But yep, I'll probably get the floor cut out here pretty soon, but I like to finish the other trailing arm first, so I'll do that, then I'll probably cut the floor out. So I'll update you then. Alright, just got done making the jig for trailing arm number 2. This one I've changed it a bit, but much better, because I was having clearance issues with taking it out. But yeah, so I'm gonna cut it up, get the other one on here, the wagon one, after I cut this one, weld them all back together, and I'll probably update you then and see how it turned out. Okay, so here's a little bit of a update. I got the floor completely cut out, or as much as I need to cut out. I just need to grind everything. So now there's this huge opening. Made me cringe the whole time that I'm cutting it, because I'm hoping I'm not just ruining a perfectly good, nice car. But I'm pretty confident I could get it done, but we'll see. I'm sure there's gonna be some people. Yeah, now the next step is gonna be just grind everything up a bit on the whole edge so it's not so jagged, and just clean it up. And I'm gonna be cleaning where I'm gonna be welding the plates. And I'm gonna be welding the plate here, and basically on the same side right here where this crap is. I gotta get rid of all that ghetto crap that got welded there to the exhaust and clean it up. And I got these 1/8 inch plates down here, and probably be able, yeah, I just cut a good portion of that off, probably like about 1/3 of it off, and I could weld the rest on there. And then I'm gonna weld my square tubing off of that. My 3/16, it's pretty beefy, and I'm only gonna be using the 3/16 from here to here, and I'm using a slightly thinner diameter on the rest of it, because I don't think there's no way this car's gonna break that. But here's the 3/16. It's pretty heavy, so I don't want to use very much of it. Oh, my bad. This is the 3/16. It's like, wait a minute, that felt heavy when I picked it up. So the one on the right is 3/16. And the left, I can't remember. Can't remember. It's so bad. But I have enough, so I don't have to go back to the store to buy more. So I bought that, and the plates, and I got some other material you'll see later. But yeah, so I'm gonna grind all this stuff up and start getting ready for my plates. Here's a ghetto little thing of what I'm doing. Basically, the center is the diff. These guys is this is where the lower LCA will go, diff bracket, and this is the frame rail over here, and the huge bar, and this is going to be, like I said, frame rail, and that's the bar that's going across from each frame rail, and I'm building off of that. And once I make that whole frame for the back, I'm just gonna try to fit the fuel cell wherever, and I'll just lay some sheet metal. It's probably just some 16 gauge, maybe something slightly thinner, just to try to save a little bit on weight. I'm not trying to make this thing stupid heavy. But yeah, I guess I'm gonna clean up some of these surfaces and get to welding some plate on there and doing the square tubing. So I'll update you once I start getting that done. So I mounted the rear trailing arms, both of them, and I've actually measured and cut and tacked together what's going to be the new rear cross member on the car. And it is made out of 2x2 inch, 1/8 inch thick square tubing, which I'm going to be also doing for the diff mount that's going to be going here. And I've also plated it on each end, so it's not being welded straight to the unibody and potentially ripping off. But now I'm going to take it all off and weld it up. Okay, so I'm back and I've gotten my rear cross member completely done. And I'm pretty damn happy how it turned out. Welds look alright. I mean, I'm not a professional, but it looks good. It doesn't look like utter bird crap. And I think it's gonna hold up. And sorry I didn't update throughout me making this cross member, but the reason is not everyone's car is the same. It won't be the same measurements or the same process you might want to take. You know, saying like it's a different chassis in EG Re-K, or maybe the EF has gotten into an accident and it's not straight. But anyway, I didn't feel like I should go into detail about that, but I will let you know I did what materials I did use for the square tubing. It's just 2x2 inch. It's 1/8, and I used that for the whole rear cross member, and also for the cross member that holds the diff, which up here I have my little bracket I made. It's also 1/8 angle iron with 1/4 inch gussets over here on the top. So, and that's welded all the way around. Then I have my little bracket over here made out of 1/8 inch sides with a 1/4 inch going across. Yeah, pretty much everything is just a 2x2 1/8 inch thick material. And the only thing I didn't use that was 2x2 was these pieces on the end. The reason being is the 2x2 is narrower than the LCA. So what I did, I got 2.5 inch, which the ID on this slips perfectly over the OD, or outside diameter. And then the LCA fits perfectly in between this. And so yeah, this is 2.5, and I used 3/16 on the ends, just because I just wanted it to be a bit stronger than everything else. Other than that, I also plated it up here. I did a 2 inch tall, 4 inches long, just so it would get a bit more material. Also did it on the back, on both ends. And then my little bracket again. But yeah, that's it. Also, another key factor of the reason of building the whole cross member, besides it being a lot stronger, is that I have moved it actually towards the back. The reason being, if you ever pay attention to the trailing arms, you would notice that the RT wagon trailing arms and the Civic trailing arms are, besides them being completely different, where they bolt onto the LCA over here, is completely different than the Civic. This is the RT. It's bolting onto the back, and on the Civic, it bolts right underneath the hub hole. So the reason I moved it back is just to match this a little bit and not tweak the control arm outward. It would have been bent in order to slip in there, and I just didn't want the axle hitting my coil over. Because if you think about it, this would have been further up here, they'll see what it came back. This would have been like bent back, all goofy and tweaked, and then the axle would have been really close to this, and I just didn't like how it was looking. So that's why I decided to make my own cross member. You don't have to, but I thought it'd be better because the axle angle is a lot better on it. They're not all crazy, you know, going forward. They're pretty straight, run pretty straight into the diff. So like I said, yeah, I'm happy of how it turned out, and that's pretty much it for this cross member. What I've just done now is I scuffed the whole thing with a Scotch-Brite pad, and I'm just gonna clean it off, spray some black on it, and yeah, I'm all finished off back here. The next thing is gonna be probably sticking the motor in this thing, so I could build the rear T-bracket mount and the mount that's going to be over here to hold the CRV transmission. And after I do that, I could fabricate my brackets that are going to be in this general area to hold my my viscous coupler and the carrier bushings, or whatever you want to call these things, because they're rubber and they're not like normal bearing bushings. It's pretty weird, but yeah. So once I start going on the motor, I'll probably start recording a bit there, and I'll show you what this looks like after I paint it.